Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Hello and welcome to another episode of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I get to speak to seemingly ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And talking about extraordinary, before we go any further today, right, I want to pause for a moment. Not rush, not hurry, not even skim over this moment. Because this is the 100th episode. Yes, thank you for sharing this with me today. That's 100. A century. And a century isn't just a number, right? It's evidence. Evidence of what, you might be thinking? Well, it's evidence that is showing up quietly, consistently, when no one else is watching, actually changes who you become and who you really are. So what do I mean? Well, just the same as the cricketer who practices as a young boy or girl for years and years as they're growing up, when no one is watching, no one is applauding, maybe the things don't get right, and perhaps they've got a coach with it as they get better, and all because they want to hit that inspiring century scoreline. And that's what we're doing today, right? Or it could be the entrepreneur, the entrepreneur having been rejected time and time again, failing at each hurdle, not knowing whether they can get up, and then finally getting that breakthrough they were longing for. You see, what I've discovered in life is success isn't linear. There is no A to B straight line. Even a trip in a jet is not a straight line. I remember, right, when I used to fly helicopters and planes, that sometimes we'd be taking off and we wouldn't even be facing where we were going. Depending on the runway, depending on the wind, and obviously the weather influences when you're flying. Actually, you may still not be pointing where you go to, but at the end of the journey, you get where you want to be on time, at the right airport, and in the right destination. You see, I remember so many times in my life when there have been highs and lows, and you've been there, haven't you? When you have everything goes right and then nothing seems to go right and things go wrong. And of course, everything in between. I bet you, if you take time to reflect on your life, you could probably capture some of the same sort of memories, can't you? Just have to think about that for a second. You see, this episode isn't about perfection. It's not about everything goes right. What I do want to share with you, though, it's about persistence, consistency, doing things time in, time out until you get the result you want. It's about choosing the long-term game. In a world obsessed with shortcuts, everyone wants to be an overnight millionaire, an overnight success. And guess what? My experience shows that that doesn't happen that often. Most people never make it this far, getting to the 100, not because they're incapable, but because they underestimate the power of staying with something once the excitement wears off. And you've been there, haven't you? If you're listening to this while on your walk, in your car, or in a quiet moment, you've carved out for yourself, that just giving yourself that moment. I want you to know this episode is as much for you as it is for me. Because somewhere in your life, right, there is something worth staying consistent with. Something that doesn't need intensity, something that needs your total commitment. Today isn't a finish line, it's a checkpoint. A chance for us to look back with honesty and forward with intention. So wherever you are right now, take a breath with me. Let's honor the ground we've already covered. And then let's talk about what becomes possible when you simply refuse to quit. Have a think about that. We're going to talk about what becomes possible when you simply refuse to quit. And while you do that, I'm just going to have a quick slurp of tea. Now let's get ready for this moment, this period in time where you're going to totally focus on your future. See, consistency is an agreement with yourself. Motivation is emotional. Consistency is structural. Consistency removes decision fatigue. Repetition forms habit. Habit is routine. And no decision is needed to execute a routine other than whether you do it or not. And let's just take it that you're going to do it, right? I want to explore why waiting to feel ready is the trap. How standards outperform goals, and why consistency creates self-trust. Now, from the Pathfinder angle, if you look at the show notes, there's a link to the Pathfinder, which is a program that I've written. But looking at it from the Pathfinder angle, you don't need certainty to move forward. You need a burning, right? And I talk about compass burning, magnetic burnings, all in the Pathfinder. I want to guide you through the 8 phases, these 8 phases to achieving your success using the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System philosophy. So we'll start with 1, because that's a great place to start, isn't it? No one applauds. There's no applause. Right? And if we look at this from a human point of view, of course, we like applause, don't we? But consistency is about starting when there's no one to applaud. I remember recording my first podcast, and in fact, podcast since, when my energy was at a low. And in that, not the first one part, because I was really pumped up, but if I take you back to the 12th of April in 2026, which was last year from when this podcast is released, it was when I broke my neck again. Yes, I know, again, not a great thing. I was prescribed morphine, codeine, and a whole load of other medication to get me through the day. And the thought of not walking again was quashed by my determination to recover and get back to doing what I love, which of course is helping others be successful. Then there was the speaking without knowing who was listening to my podcast. And it's not only the podcast, it's about the stuff that you do when you're not sure who's going to benefit. And despite the pain I was in at the time, and the feeling of fear, false evidence appearing real, by the way, and then just doing it anyway, just going through with what you're focusing on what your goal is. And, this can be for you as well. The stuff that just doing it anyway. And then publishing my podcast without immediate feedback. And I've had feedback for each podcast that I've done, and it's all been excellent. And I'd like to thank my guests for helping me on the journey, because a lot of them have said, you know what, Joe, the podcast has been better than a CV. So if you want to listen to those podcasts, that'll be great, because you'll get different things from each one. But publishing without getting feedback immediately, getting the message of success and salvation out there is important. And more important than keeping it locked inside and accepting mediocrity. Why? Because I know at some point the podcast can help listeners who are just like you benefit in some way. One thing I do know is growth happens when no one is watching. Growth happens when no one is watching. Like the world-class athletes. The ones where the cricketer, for instance, Then there's the sprinter, the long distance runner, you name it. Swimmers, they all get up early in the morning, work hard through the day, working at night, practicing the techniques. Well, I remember my time training as a physical training instructor in the army, learning new skills, right? And really having to work hard, getting up before the class started, finishing well long after the class finishes during the normal working day, or even learning to walk again after breaking my neck the first time during the testing SAS selection course, and then followed by a painful divorce and not seeing my children. And as I mentioned earlier, breaking my neck more recently for the second time. During each of these times, I certainly experienced a feeling of loneliness. Times when I was unsure about my future. Did you know, for instance, loneliness can be debilitating if you've ever suffered from it, and is a big problem for 18 to 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds, or those leaving the military and entrepreneurs who are leading the way and out at the front, because often that's lonely, isn't it? Because when you're at the front, you've got no one to follow. And the way to combat this, one good way to combat it head on, is to get out and meet people, get networking. How? Well, it takes the average person 200 hours to build a friendship, to develop trust, honesty, and the ability to feel vulnerable and share your story, your journey. And there's no need to feel ashamed about being lonely, because it can be corrected. You can remove the stigma of the big, tough alpha male syndrome. Loneliness happens, and getting connected can change things for the better. To discover how, take a look in the show notes to find the link to the Transformer Business Network, where I meet every 2 weeks with other entrepreneurs and veterans. And this is a place where you can register your interest and find out how you can meet a growing network of like-minded people in a safe environment, because my mission is to help 1 million veterans and business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they desire. So now we'll move on to number 2, the second in the 8 series. Why 100 matters, the century effect. It's the power of compounding, you see, and compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. Remember this, the episode that changed everything often didn't feel special at the time. And whether that's a podcast, an experience in your life, for instance, when a wheel is spinning, which downward stroke to get the wheel started and continue its spinning was responsible for it spinning at the speed? Well, that's right. No one particular downward stroke was responsible, because they're all responsible for getting it going, gaining momentum, and keeping it there. Let's have a look at the podcast, for instance. When I did my first podcast, I was terrified, right, to hit that record button. And you know what? If you listen to the podcast number 1, the audio might not be the best in the world. Maybe it may not look as good as this one does now. The fact is, though, I just gave it a go. So let's have a look at how, whenever you're doing something new and going into a new area, how it forms. With the podcast, for instance, in the context of the podcast, episodes 1 to 10 was the identity forming. Me perfecting the questions I was asking to the veterans I was interviewing, getting the message out there, and making sure that what was happening was exactly the way I wanted to do it. Episode 11 to 50 was resistance and refinement. This is where you overcome resistance in personal belief, also in your equipment, and then you refine the way the questions are delivered and the content that you've got. For instance, there's some fantastic podcasts in there, and my podcasts are known for being a little bit longer than 30 minutes. In fact, they often go beyond that. And then the next section is 51 to 99, the momentum and mastery. This is where I can just sit in front of the computer or my recording equipment and just press go. And whether I'm with a guest or delivering my own show, I just know what to do. Of course, it still takes a lot of research, development, and preparation to deliver the podcast. But at the end of the day, it's a lot easier than the first one, which took me about 3 days to put together. Now I can do it in much shorter time. And then finally, today, episode 100, the integration, the podcast that links everything to this moment in time, everything that brings me to deliver this to you now. So let's have a think about this. Where else does this apply in life? Where else does this apply in your life? Could be your health. You start small at first, i.e. with a weight loss program or a fitness program. For instance, me at this stage now, I'm lost a lot of muscle during because it's not even a year yet since my incident. It's 8 months, and now I have to look at my recovery program. In relationships, develop one good relationship followed by another, then another. In business and in friendships, because we'll come on to a little bit of statistics about friendships in a moment, but just start one at a time. And leadership, right? You may think you're not a leader yet, and that's okay. Or you may think, yeah, you're a really good leader. Think about a time when you have led a conversation or led yourself to a decision, because we all lead ourselves to decisions, whether they're great decisions or not so great. So have a look at leadership, because I believe each of us have got a leader inside of us. And then the most important one is self-belief. This is where you dream small at first and then bigger until you grow into the person you need to be to achieve your game-changing dream. And guess what? Right, some people, not you of course, but some people never set big dreams because they don't believe they can achieve it. Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, I encourage you to set impossible dreams, because even if you set an impossible dream and you do not quite make it, right? If you aim for the moon and you don't quite make it, you've still got the stars, haven't you? So same as a dream, if you aim over and above Everest and you get just below and you're at the top of Everest, that's still a pretty cool place to get, isn't it? So the key message here is a century isn't about volume. It's about becoming unrecognizable to your former self. And now we move to point 3, the choice point. Turn inspiration into action. And what do I mean by this? Well, let me ask you a few questions, because this will give me a break to drink, actually, which is a great point. Here's my first question. What have you started and not stayed with? What have you started and not stayed with in the past? Next, where have you been inconsistent because results were slow? That's a biggie, isn't it? Where have you been inconsistent because results are slow? And here is something about consistency. This one is magical, because with this, you can make some big changes. And without it, you could live in a life of mediocrity. So what would 100 small actions look like in your world? What a question. What would 100 small actions look like in your world? And now that you're thinking about this, and I'm going to move, I'd like to move on. What you can do while you're writing that down is pause the podcast That's the magical thing about podcasts, isn't it? You can pause, you can restart, and you might be watching this on video as well. You can just pause. Right, so here's an exercise for you. Write down one commitment you'll keep for the next 100 days. Not perfectly. It doesn't need to be perfectly. It needs to be done honestly. So what commitment are you going to make for the next 100 days? Write it down and have a look at it. Good, brilliant. So next, number 4 in the 8 series is, I'd like you to do something with me. And if you're able, slow down for a moment. Now, if you're driving, just either stop driving or turn this off, or just make sure you keep concentrating on what you're doing. I want you to ask yourself this question honestly. What is the one thing you started with good intention and didn't stay with? And now I want you to ask yourself this question. What is the one thing I started with good intention and didn't stay with? And do not ask this question with judgment. There's no need to be judgmental on yourself. It's about being curious. Now ask yourself, what stopped me from doing it? Lack of ability or lack of consistency? And here's the next question. This one really matters. What would I change in my life if I committed to that one thing for the next 100 days consistently? Not 100 heroic days, just 100 honest ones. And let yourself picture it. The version of you 100 days from now. Quieter confidence, deeper trust in yourself, fewer promises broken internally. And now decide this. What is one small action I can repeat daily without negotiating with myself? I'll repeat that because that's a really important question. What is the one small action I can repeat daily without negotiating with myself? Now write it down if you can, because clarity fades, commitment doesn't. And remember this, consistency isn't about proving anything to the world. It's about keeping a promise to yourself long enough to become someone new. Think about that. Consistency isn't about proving anything to the world. It's about keeping a promise to yourself long enough to become someone new. Number 5, the Pathfinder 100-day consistency challenge. The sensory commitment, if you like. It's one action, 100 days, no drama, no perfection, no restarting the clock for missed days, just honest continuation. And to discover more about Successful Become, visit joeteams.com. And the joeteams.com/TP to discover more power strategies based on tried and tested military precision. That's joeteams.com/TP. The rules are simple and powerful. First rule, choose one non-negotiable daily action. Something small enough to complete on your worst day. On your worst day, not on your best day. It could be 10 minutes walking, writing one paragraph that motivates you, making your bed. And in the Pathfinder, I go through the philosophy and the psychology behind making your bed. Why it's one of the first skills they teach in the military, because making your bed is so important. I haven't got time to go through it now. I've touched on it in past podcasts, but certainly in the Pathfinder, you can find out more about it. And then also one uncomfortable conversation avoided for too long. Hey, and get this, something that's really good, really fantastic. It's just 5 minutes of stillness. 5 minutes of stillness, undisturbed, not thinking about anything else, just total still. Number 2, same action, same standard every day. No upgrading, no stacking. Consistency beats creativity here. Number 3, track it visibly, and you don't need any expensive software. You can do it simply with a notebook, a calendar, a wall chart. Make progress tangible. Number 4, miss a day. Continue the next day without punishment. Right? The lesson is resilience, not rigidity. The lesson is resilience, not rigidity. And it serves no purpose beating yourself up. If you miss a day, just continue the next day without punishment. Your why. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. Now, I know before I said you set the goal, you dream, make it massive and become the person you need to be. And that's absolutely fantastic. What I want you to also realize is that your standard is really important to develop that. And watching a kettle won't boil the water. I remember someone said that to me once, and I thought, wow, isn't that great? Watching a kettle won't boil the water. You have to move to switch it on. Isn't that dead simple? That phrase just reflects everything. It's about taking action. And standing still doesn't get you to your destination. So for the next 100 days, your only standard is this. I do what I said I would do when I said I would do it, especially when I don't feel like it. How many times have you not done something because you didn't feel like it? Well, now I want you to scrap that, forget it, wipe it from your conscience. You don't need it. It doesn't serve you any purpose. I want you to be totally focused, committed to consistency. And I want you to say each day, I do what I said I would do when I said I would do it, especially when I don't feel like it. Or I did what I said I would do when I said I would do it, especially when I didn't feel like it, in the past tense, because then that shows success. And how this changes people like you and me. You see, it builds self-trust in yourself. It builds self-trust from other people in you. It removes reliance on motivation, because motivation's all right. There are lots of motivational speakers out there, and you go on a 3-day seminar or 1-day seminar, and you leave motivated as heck. And as soon as you walk out the door, motivation's gone, isn't it? Because you're only motivated in the moment. So I prefer inspiration, inspire, educate, motivate. Inspire you to be educated, and then you get motivated. I'll show you how to be motivated. So when you can remove the reliance on motivation and just know the consistency is there, and you'll do it even when you don't feel like it, is a big secret. It's a massive step forward, because this creates momentum quietly, right? It rewires your identity, and it gets your network to trust you, whether it's a network of 1 or a network of 100 or 100,000 people. And you follow this process, and by day 30, your resistance fades. By day 60, your confidence stabilizes. And by day 100, you do not feel the same. because you're not the same. I'd like to paraphrase Heraclitus now. No person steps in the same river twice, because it is not the same river and they are not the same person. So just think about that for a minute. If you go through this 100-day plan, by day 30, your resistance fades. By day 60, your confidence stabilizes. By day 100, you do not feel the same, because you are not the same person. And as Heraclitus says, no person steps in the same river twice, because it's not the same river and they are not the same person. So imagine, right, if you stepped in a river today, and for the next 100 days, did this 100-day challenge, right? Well, I know it's definitely not the same river, because the water passed where you stood in, long gone. And in 100 days, you're not the same person, because you'll have learned something else. You'll have gone to sleep and woken up a few times in that period. So what a great phrase that is by Heraclitus. Now, number 6. We're drawing towards the close now. And if you take nothing else from episode 100 today's episode, take this. Your future doesn't need a dramatic breakthrough. It needs you to keep going calmly, consistently, and with intention. One day at a time, one action at a time. And that's how centuries are built. First point, then second. You might knock the occasional 4. You might even knock the occasional 6. It's just about the 1 point. Because that's how centuries are built. And looking forward, what's the next chapter? What's your purpose in life? What's your purpose, your mission? Future focus without pressure. And share with yourself, share with your network, and share with me what excites you about the next phase. Have a think about that. What excites you about the next phase? And if you listen to the previous episodes, that's 100 episodes, 99 previous ones. Imagine how your thinking would have matured since episode 1. I know how mine has. I've had some fantastic guests, as I said, from all around the world as well. Purple Heart, people who've been awarded the Purple Hearts, medals like you wouldn't believe from experiences and episodes and conflicts that they've been involved in, and also Vietnam War and wars in South Africa. The guests have just been absolutely phenomenal, and what they're doing now, how they're successful in business. So how my thinking has matured is phenomenal. So what are you more committed to doing? What are you more committed to doing now? You see, because the mission stays the same, the methods evolve. The mission stays the same, the methods evolve. And now as we come into a close in frame 8 of the 8 steps, I want to look at carrying the flame. Continue to carry the flame forward. I'd like to thank you for walking alongside me on this journey of success, our success, your success, and my success. I want to thank you for allowing me to give you some insight into my journey, and also the questions that I've asked you should have helped you look at your journey. By the way, give yourself a pat on the back for getting through whatever you've been through, because I think you're tremendous. And congratulations to you wherever you are on your journey. You might be at the beginning, you might be in the middle, you might be at the end of one particular journey and start thinking about starting another. Remember that consistency is the main ingredient to success. And finally, You don't need a perfect plan. There's no such thing as a perfect plan anyway. And many business plans are written for banks or to placate someone so they feel some confidence in you. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, or in the military, no plan survives the first conflict. Or no plan survives the first contact. Because everything goes out the window on that contact. You got a plan, but then you got to improvise, adapt, and overcome. You need to promise you'll stick to whatever your plan is again and again and again. Making small adjustments, just like first contact, you make small adjustments. The destination may be the same, but how you get there changes. And you make the small adjustments as and when needed. And just like a pilot, if you remember when I used to take off and pilots take off, they may be facing the wrong way. They may be flying against the headwind or the tailwind or the side wind, which means that will also the way that they are pointing the nose of the plane. I want you to stay consistent for more than one day, though. That's the secret. 100-day challenge. And here's my final challenge to you. Your century challenge is write down what you are committing to now. Subscribe to the podcast and replay this episode, because I kid you not, if you listen to this again, you will pick up something else that you hadn't heard the first time, or you may just hear it a different way and it'll impact you a different way. And get a regular reflection point going forward. Spend time with yourself, 5 minutes, remember, just thinking about what you can. And, to find out more and to successful become, visit joeteams.com. That's Joe, JOETEAMS.com. And you can look in the show notes as well. One of the things I've found about consistency, it's better to have a coach or a mentor to help you than I run things regularly that can help you get where you want to be. And the Transformer Business Network is a great place to meet other people, both military and civilians, business entrepreneurs. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I truly wish that you have gained a lot from today. I certainly have. And when you put these learnings into practice, I know you can improve your performance. I know you can get better results and live an even better, stronger, and more fulfilled life than you are now. Make sure you check out the links in the show notes to find out where to get more information. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day. JoeTeams.com is a resource I've created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoeTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit JoeTeams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's JoeTeams.com, JoeTeams, JoeTeams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.